Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Four Pillar Podcast with me, Ian and Matt. And today we have another special guest. We have Stuart Washington here with us, and we're going to cover a whole bunch of things. We're going to kind of maybe get through like kind of all four of our pillars, talking about faith, family, fitness, and finance. Because he's a very successful businessman. He's one of my great friends, and has been a really awesome mentor to me and helped me with a lot of things, especially when I'm struggling with things. And not, I mean, just in life in general. I really enjoy talking to him. He's really taught me a lot, and I really appreciate him. And just thank you again for coming in and doing a podcast, because I think you have a lot of valuable information with your older age and wisdom.
Great, thank you.
But no, he's a really awesome guy, and we're excited to ask him some really good questions today and see what we can learn from him. So Stuart, really quick, do you want to tell us, I guess, however you want to share, what you've done or accomplished? Because I mean, and I know you're probably going to be humble or modest about it, but I mean, you've seriously done a lot or accomplished a lot in your life, and I think it's really awesome what you've done.
Well, hopefully it's still just the beginning. But yeah, I've done a tremendous number of things in my life so far, from having security clearances and working in that area to be an entrepreneur, a software developer, CTO, a CEO of a financial technology company that I did started in my basement back in 2002 and eventually sold to a private equity firm and is now on the NASDAQ after it was merged with another company.
Yeah, so, I think that's huge, because you talk about, like we've talked about business and stuff. I mean, you basically took a startup business from completely nothing to, you say, IPO, correct? Is that the correct?
Yeah, well, it was, to be fair, I sold it, it merged, and then went. So I did not participate in the IPO.
Okay.
At all, but building something that is capable of that is 98% of the battle. So it's I get very proud of that accomplishment.
Yeah, I think just even how impressive that is. I mean, that's under probably 1%, 0.5%, 1/4% of people are even capable of doing. We talked about the revenue landmarks for small business owners to hit. And I mean, that's building a company to go to an IPO level is it's very rare.
Well, it's not so much about revenue; it's about quality.
Right.
It's about sustainability and so many other factors that initial business people don't even think about until you have the time to actually mold your business to become something that is sustainable. Something that I'm working on right now is and hopefully will be mentoring somebody soon, is about becoming dispensable in your organization. We work so much to be and we think we have to become indispensable, but really as a leader of a business you need to become dispensable. The person who becomes the predominant mentor in your organization to bring people up so that you can step aside. You're not just creating a job for yourself, you're creating something that is generational. If you no longer are able to participate in that business, if you die, if you want to retire, whatever it is, that business still prospers. And that's the thing that I was able to start learning. I was very young at that, and I didn't do a really good job in that process. But that was really the standing back in retrospect and learning about what it took and kind of dissecting the process in my head. That was really the key when I started empowering other people and taking so much more of a back seat in the operation of the business, still providing the guidance, the direction for the organization, but how you get from point A to point B in many times is irrelevant, and you don't need to micromanage those things. So that was really the the key that I found that helps to take a business. It's not the only thing, but that's one of the major keys from the leadership side that helps take a business to the next level.
Is letting go of, per se, control of.
Yeah, not letting go, but developing people in that organization that you trust, that are capable, and then can also reproduce the results that you can produce. So entrepreneurs, they start off a business because they have the drive, the motivation, the ability to do something, but where does that go once you want to go on a vacation? You have underlings, you have employees that carry on a mission, but do they really have those same qualities that you have? And that's where you need to really mentor and develop and actually seek out people who have the ability to do what you do, think the way you think, and hopefully when you're not there, to develop the goals and expand the goals. So,
like your inner circle.
Yeah, your inner circle, but not only that. It's every aspect of the organization. It's the person who cleans the toilets to the person who manages the money. How do you bring those people along? Are you just hiring people to do a job? Which you can find people all day just to do a job. But do you want a job if you're a business owner? Or do you want to build something that's lasting? Do you want to build something that's generational? Do you want to build something that makes an impact in your community, in the state, in the world? It's really being able to take those individuals and teach them and train them and empower them to be more than just employees. Hold them accountable. Let them make mistakes, which that's the hardest thing. I had one employee that made a significant mistake, and I invited him to go on a business trip, and we sat next to each other on a plane for 4 hours. And the first little bit, I dressed him down. This is what he was captive audience. You can't go anywhere on a plane.
Right.
So this is what you did wrong. This is what This is what cost the company a significant amount of money and put things at jeopardy. But I did see potential in this individual. So once you do that, then it's okay. How can we get over this? How can you trust me more, that when you have a problem, when you have an issue, you can come to me. You're not afraid of me. You're not afraid of the wrath of me as your employer. But we're in it together. Right. We're developing this business together. I rely on you as much as you rely on me. And at this point now, he's still with the company, and he reports to the CEO of a publicly traded company. So things along those lines are where we need to have employees. Employees are not dispensable. You don't just get rid of an employee if they don't do what you think they should be doing. It's really our job as employers, and further on, as if you're a Christian business person, it makes it even more imperative. But we're here to develop people. We're here to help people become who they can be, and help them develop their potential.
That leads into two questions I wanted to ask you. One, were there certain characteristics you were looking for in people? Like you said, from the person who cleans the bathrooms to the highest person on, were there certain things you said, kind of, these are the traits or characteristics I'm looking for the people that work for me?
One of the biggest things is humility. Most people don't show humility in their public life. We try to be the big dog in the room, and but even in that, you can see humility in people. Is if somebody is humble, and it's not just being weak. It's, you know, weak is humility is strength under control. And being able to see those things in people, you can start working with them. But also another great characteristic is willingness to learn. If you're teachable, if you can bring in an employee that's teachable, they may not be able to replace you as the CEO or be the next Steve Jobs or whatever, but they can learn to take on more and more responsibility in that company, and you can trust them more. Because again, as an employer, an entrepreneur, if you do everything yourself, it's just a job. If you can delegate to others successfully, then you've created a real business. So, looking for humility and looking for somebody who's teachable. And I think the third thing is someone who's not afraid to make a mistake. I have made more mistakes in business, in life, in everything than you can imagine. But you have to look at all of those as training opportunities.
Can you find those three things on a resume or in an interview, especially humility? How do you seek that?
Yeah, it's
or do you take a chance on people and see if all that comes through?
Yeah, mostly the second. You need to develop relationships with people. You work with somebody, you see how they react to certain situations, when things go wrong, when things go right, when you're just sitting in the lunchroom, or you're having a business lunch, or you just stop by somebody's office to see how they're doing. You can see those things.
After they have success, how do they handle that?
Yeah,
right.
or when they have failure, how do they handle that? Or just on a drab, run-of-the-mill day, everything is just the same. It's another Monday morning from an exhausting weekend. How do they handle themselves there? So it takes time. None of this is quick. I mean, it took me years and years and years to figure all these things out and to finally get people in place that were both beneficial for the company and being beneficial careers for them too.
You mentioned being a Christian business. Did your employees have to be Christian? If they weren't, was that an automatic disqualifier? No.
No, absolutely not. I never see. I don't look at somebody's moral compass as a qualifier or disqualifier for their ability to carry on the mission of an organization. Because once somebody's in an organization, they start to either become that culture or assimilate to that culture, or you assimilate to them. So it's the strength of character of the organization that really helps people who may not be Christian, may not have the moral compass that you have, helps them to realize that, yeah, I've never been in a situation like this before, but it's nice. I like the people here. There's something different about this organization. So that's a completely different topic that it's huge about how to develop the culture of your organization to be able to assimilate and, if you want to use all the words, witness or disciple people in your organization to maybe not full Christianity, but at least to start developing their lives and planting seeds in their lives so that they can become better in who they are, and again, to benefit the organization.
Yeah, so even using which I've heard this a lot, or kind of kind of nice objective with with our businesses to try to just I guess disciple through the business, or to like you said, plant seeds or show how be a good leader or an example of how Christians should act. Would you say that's roughly what Christian business owners should be trying to do, or?
Absolutely, absolutely. As a Christian business owner, you have a dozen, 24 different objectives you're dealing with constantly, that you're constantly juggling. You're constantly juggling payroll, existing customers, new customers, employee issues, taxes, all these different things. But at the end of the day, there are some things that are more important. And the people that you work with on a day in, day out basis, they're not liabilities, they're assets. They're things that you need to nurture. They're not just things that you throw away. And that's a difficult task, and it takes. And not to say I'm not perfect with it. Don't get me wrong. I'm not thinking. Don't get the impression that I have all the answers or that I've done everything right, because I haven't, and I don't know all the answers. But being able to develop the people in the organization, once you really start working on that, all of these other things, the taxes, the new customers, the customer service, all of these other things start falling into place. Not perfectly, they'll never be perfect, but would you rather have somebody in your organizations that's public facing with customers who is crass, sometimes has off color humor, maybe isn't always in a good mood? What's that going to be like in with new customers and the impression of your business? Or do you want somebody who, again, is good with people like them, and you can, believe it or not, you can take somebody that is not a people person and develop them into somebody who does work well with people. So again, developing people is really the most important thing of any business, because that's what we run on.
Right. Yeah, I like that a lot. Now, you said you obviously, I know I've made a lot of mistakes. I'm sure Matt has. Everybody does that. What are a couple things that, maybe it's one, maybe it's a couple of standout things that you may have done differently now looking back at it, or maybe you wouldn't do anything differently about any certain mistake or whatever?
Oh man, to say.
I know we're not supposed to technically have regrets, I guess, but I mean, I don't think it's necessarily regret. It's just reflecting on maybe what we do different.
My biggest regret is that I never found a mentor. I learned very early on that if you want to, wherever you want to go, find somebody who's already been there. Because if you're going to go on a international trip, you find a tour guide. They've already been to all the locations. They know the ins and outs. They know the things to do and not to do. And that's really the same in business. To find somebody who has been there, maybe not in your particular field of business. I was in technology. You're in fitness. Really not similar business models at all. But
there's a lot of principles that
there's a lot of principles.
Yeah.
There's a lot of intersections. There's a lot of things to do right, now a lot of things not to do right, not to do. So yeah, it's just finding that person who can guide you along the way. And unfortunately, they're few and far between. I often used to tell my wife, there's so few people I can actually talk to, because I can't just go, as much as I love my employees, the people that help bring about success, I couldn't go to them and talk to them about issues that I was dealing with, because it's foreign. I'm dealing with their issues. They're not dealing with my issues.
Right.
So that mentor is absolutely key. Somebody who can just open up to, somebody you can trust. But again, I never had that person, and I regret what could have been if I didn't have to make all these stupid mistakes, and I could have had somebody guide me through the minefield of business. So that was the my number one regret.
At the same time, is there also a sense of pride that you did this whole thing on your own, and you took your bumps and bruises and got through it, without having this person, the mentor, someone to listen to?
Absolutely. It's very, I have a lot of pride in what, my idea, but it took a lot of us to accomplish it. Tons of pride in that. My regret is, I was very successful. If I didn't have to go through and make all these other mistakes, I question where I could have gone with that business. And that's really the key. It's how far are you willing to go? In fitness, is the ultimate the black belt, or is the ultimate to never stop progressing?
Right.
And if you set the goal as I want to be a black belt, then once you've achieved it, then what? Your dreams, your ambitions, everything else is just they no longer exist. So it's the same in business, where it's your goal to never stop improving yourself, improving the organization, improving the bottom line, improving your ability to impact the community. And those are the things that I regret. That there was October 1st, 2018 was the cutoff date, the day I signed the papers to sell my company. At that point, I knew I could never grow it anymore. I could never take that business any further. There was a hard line in the sand. That's a regret. I'm glad I sold the business and it allowed me to do so many other things, but I never was able to see it become what it could have been. And again, with a mentor,
Well, how much more does it mean to you now to be a mentor to somebody else? To be able to do something for someone that was never given to you?
Oh, I absolutely love it.
Yeah.
If I could do this as a full-time career, I would. It's fun. Sometimes it's extraordinarily frustrating to know what should be done, but you need to let that person discover it on their own. Again, a guide can only do so much. You can't force somebody to make a decision or to do the right thing. So that's frustrating, but you don't win everybody. If you can see, if I could help one person achieve their goals, that's definitely worth it. But I know there's a lot of people out there.
What was so with that then? What was one of the biggest setbacks you had, and how did you overcome the setback?
Wow, one.
I guess your biggest one.
This is going to sound weird, but the biggest setback. I mean, we had financial setbacks. It was always a struggle. People always think it's glamorous to own a business. Leaders eat last. There's so many times when we paid everything, and then if there was anything left, we got paid. So, but as far as regrets, I think the biggest regret is just that I was out to prove for so much of this time. I was out to prove to others that I could do it, and I had the wrong motivation in this. It was all about my ego. It was about proving other people wrong.
Yeah, you had a bunch of people telling you basically that this is impossible for you to do something that's became like basically your whole ambition is to try to say, no, I'm going to show you that I can do it.
Yeah, I mean, it's people are surprised to find out that I'm highly dyslexic. Reading is very difficult for me. I was in special ed classes up until my sophomore year of high school, and in order to get out, we actually moved from to a different state, and that's the only reason I was able to get out of special ed classes. So just being able to prove all these people wrong, that yes, I am capable of these things, was that was the motivation for so much of the time. And, I going in thinking your boss is an idiot doesn't really benefit you long term, or really at all. But I had that problem where I just thought, why am I doing this job? Why is my boss telling me to do this? Because it's stupid. I should be doing something else that's more productive. And I came in with that chip on my shoulder that I know what I'm doing. Yet for so many things I didn't. The only thing that really kept me going was the attitude that I refused to quit.
Yeah, that was actually one of my next questions. Is what made you keep going when you didn't want to keep going?
Yeah, and really it was just that, just absolute stubbornness to say I am not going to quit, because if I quit, they were right. And trust me, there was a lot of situations, a lot of times where I should have quit. I tell people, what's the difference? How does a business keep on going? And again, because since most businesses fail really early in their life, very few businesses ever get to $1 million in revenue. And it's not because a lot of these businesses that fail don't have the potential to. It's because their leadership does not have the steadfast belief that I am not going to quit no matter what. If I have to eat ramen noodles and go without, I'm going to, in order to achieve this goal, because I know one day it's going to pay off. But that's really hard, and I get it. Not everybody has that stamina, but really that's business. Business is war. I mean, it's not easy. From government regulations and all these different things, and what you can do, what you can't do.
Joe Biden.
Yeah.
we can play some of that.
But I 3 or 4 times I get legal notices that we have people want to sue us, and just it's tiring. Even to the point when I was selling my business, there were some months where I could not sleep restfully. It was just so much stress, dealing with massive contracts, dealing with multiple conflicting agendas for people. It's hard. Business is hard. That's why most people are employees, and that's why if you go to school, you're taught to be an employee. You're not really taught to be a business owner. Most people need to figure it out on their own. So that's why ultimately you have to say, I have a good idea. This is going to work. I'm not going to stop until it does.
Yeah. And I think it's actually kind of our objective, with the podcast, with the gym in general, is all 4 of those aspects, family, faith, fitness, and finance can be hard, because you have to do stuff that's hard that makes you uncomfortable to achieve something. And I think that same thing you're saying, I think almost be somewhat applied to all aspects of your life. I mean, if you take the easy road, or do something easy, it's probably not gonna benefit you as much as it could potentially. So I'm sorry, Matt, you want to say something?
I was just going to ask. We asked you earlier, what were you looking for in other people? What would you say? What kind of characteristics were you looking for in them? Who did you have to be, besides what you just mentioned, for people who, entrepreneurship is very popular right now. I don't know if it's all the Gary Vee stuff. It just seems like it's taken off, and everybody wants to go down that road. So what should they expect? Who do they have to be to succeed?
The turning point in my career. It's a big ego bump when you're handing out your business card. Do we even use business cards anymore? But when I'd hand out my business card and said CEO President, I was the head honcho of this thing. But there was a point where I actually changed my title to Chief Facilitator. I realized that my role was to ensure that everyone else around me had what they needed to succeed. And that was ended up being a more important view of what I was doing on a day-to-day basis. If there was it was my job to ensure that most people never in the organization never knew that a problem existed. That I would overcome a problem and just provide them the resources and the capability to do their job. And that was a hard thing. It's a massive change in paradigm, but that was the key. It wasn't until we were in the process of selling the company that I officially changed my title back, because the company needed an official CEO.
Yeah.
But that's how I really see everything now is, a true business leader is a facilitator for their employees.
There's actually one question I want to ask you now too. So how transparent should you be with your employees when you have problems and stuff like that? For anybody who owns a business, at some point, right, you want the transparency to create trust with them. But as far as if there's certain problems or whatever, what do you not be transparent with, and what do you be transparent with?
One thing that lamenting to my wife many times during the hard times is I long for the stress of an employee. Employees don't know most of what's going on. They just know that every couple weeks this money shows up in their bank account or they get a check. So really the hard part when you're starting to mentor an employee and starting to mentor somebody who you want to be a leader in the business, you need to share some things with them, but you have to do it slowly. You've had time in this business, you've grown it from the beginning, or you've been there, early on in the early on stages of the business. You've been conditioned to see these problems, work with these problems. If you bring somebody in as an employee that one day they're answering phones and the next day you're talking about financial situations,
It's overwhelming.
It's overwhelming. So you need to, if there's a small situation, somebody you want to train, somebody you think could be leaders, share the problem with them, share the situation with them, and ask them, well, what would you do? But don't stop there. Follow through to the resolution. Keep them involved, even if it's just informing them. And it could be hey Bob, hey, whatever happened. This is what happened with this situation. This is how it how we finally got it resolved. You just keep them informed. That does not only is training them, but it's building trust in that employee. Is I'm willing to share this stuff with them. Well, he must really like me.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's a two-way street. As they develop, as if they can handle that situation, then you go on to everything. Again, just like in training, if you try to get somebody to bench 200 pounds and they can't do it, you don't put more plates on the bar. You take things off. You find a place where they can handle the weight, they can handle the exercise that they're working on. But as they mature, as they strengthen, as they show initiative,
Put those plates back on.
you put the plates back on.
I like that. It's a good analogy.
It's all about analogies.
So maybe a little bit different angle here on this, but right, you'd say probably most of the people in the world right now, they're working like 9-to-5 jobs and stuff like that. That's what most people do. So what's one thing? And I know this is hard or whatever, because I try to think about this. If I have someone else ask me, well, what should I do or whatever. But what would be like your number one advice that you would give to somebody that worked a 9 to 5? They go, well, how am I supposed to, like, what should I do to best myself financially, or maybe start a side business? Like what would be your advice to somebody in that 9 to 5 that maybe wants to do something different or just better themselves financially? Because I know that can be hard if you're working a job, right? So you took this job and you're on a salary, so you have to try to basically, I guess, climb the corporate ladder, or I mean, I'll stop talking there, but
or go out on your own,
right? Or go out
in a full-time way. Or are you asking like to keep a side business or to turn that side business into like what he did?
Well, both. I mean, either you work a full-time job and start a side business, or I guess what would you recommend to somebody if they really like, hey, like I want to do better.
First thing, really talk to your friends, and hopefully have the friends to talk to that will take you seriously and that you trust, and tell them, I want to do this. This is what I feel I should do. Talk me out of it. Why are the reasons I shouldn't do this? And the negatives are more important than hearing why you should do something. Because why you should do something, you can't act upon those things. The negative things are the things you can act upon. I don't have enough money. Well, that's a problem. How do I get more money? I don't have these skills. Well, that's a problem. How do I get those skills? I don't have this. Well, how do I get that? And so on and so forth. Seek the negative. So often we don't want to hear the negative from our friends, from anybody. But you need to, because if you don't hear them now, you're going to hear them when you're going bankrupt. And they're going to nag at you later. So I think really the first thing is you talk to your friends and have them talk you out of it. Second thing is, if you currently have a job, you're making X amount of money, learn how to live on half of it. Because trust, unless you get lucky, you're not going to be making money for any time soon. And it is expensive to start most things. So just learn how to live on a little, with the expectation that one day I'm going to be able to afford vacations. People look at my life now and don't realize that there was 10 years I didn't take a vacation. When we went to visit family, I took my computers. I set up shop there and I worked because I couldn't afford not to. And our vacations were literally going up to my in-laws or going to my parents, and me just sitting down. My family would go off and do things with their family members, but it's hard and you have to make those sacrifices. But most of those sacrifices were because of finances. If you can't afford to hire somebody, then you do the job for them. And at one point, I don't even know how many different jobs I was doing. So you really, there's a lot of reasons why not to start a business. To me, it's easy to talk somebody out of being an entrepreneur. And if you can't, then you've actually found an entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's really interesting, because you think, a young person sitting around with their friends, well, I'm going to make a ton of money and I can make my own hours and I don't have to work for some jerk boss, and they're all going, yeah, let's, you know what I mean? But thinking about it your way poses some questions that they might not otherwise have thought about,
Yeah, because that jerk boss ends up being you.
Right.
And there's no one else to blame. And tell you, it can cause emotional issues. It causes stress. I ended up in cardiac ICU, from the stress. It's not fun when you're sitting there on a gurney, being rolled up, to, this thing, and I listened to a person die all night in the next room. It's not fun. business is stress because you're trying to maintain a quality of life for your family, maintain the expectations that you have in your mind, and just trying to do all these things, not let down your employees.
I was going to say, you got a bunch of people depending on you who are trying to start their own families or maintain their families, and
Who have their own mortgages, who have their own,
personal problems.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it gets multiplied really, really fast. So.
I was definitely a first-hand witness on it. I mean, I think I don't know if I share this with you, everybody. Obviously, I really wanted to own my own business or whatever when I was graduating college. But I mean, part of my initial thought process was, well, if I own a gym, I get to do jiu-jitsu all day and work out. Yeah, that's quite the opposite. When you're starting a business with something you have passion about, you think, well, you need to be around that. But I mean, it's really doing a bunch of things that's not that.
I was a computer programmer. I programmed for about 5 years in the business. In one aspect or another, I was never a lead programmer. But I had to be a point where, okay, now I'm mastery of accounting. Now I know HR. Now I know all these other things. Now I have to be involved in sales. Now I have to be involved in, you very quickly lose the thing that you're passionate about. And you have to learn how now I'm passionate about business and others. That's why it's so important to learn how to mentor. Because if I was in it because I wanted to be a programmer, which was the initial motivation, then when that was gone, then what do I have? You started a business because you wanted to roll around on the mats and pin people all day. Well, when that's gone,
Right.
Are you still motivated to be part of that business? So, I mean, there's so much that goes into entrepreneurship that people don't realize. It's a different life. Hopefully, you'll be able to glean the rewards at the end, or hopefully not before the end, but be able to live a pretty decent life. But it's not what you're going to expect. It never is. But I'll take that back. One thing you can expect is it's going to be hard.
Right.
Well, as far as the business we've been talking about most of the time, you're at the end of that, right? When you think about maybe time you missed with family, those vacations when you were working and they were out, or maybe just with your wife and kids and you're looking back at it, what is the reward at the end? Besides the money's one thing, right? The lifestyle you've built, but on a more personal level, what made it all worth it?
Yeah. Right at the beginning, I have two daughters. I missed the first couple of years of my first daughter's life. I wasn't there. When I was home, I wasn't there. I was mentally gone. So that was a massive sacrifice. Now, though, I have the freedom to spend time with my family. If one of my daughters and her husband live 1,000 miles away, if we want to go see them, we get on a plane to go see them. But more than that now, I'm able to provide opportunities and teach my youngest daughter things that I wish I knew at her age, and be able to spend time and just be a father to them, which is awesome. I love doing it, even though she's a teen. So how much can I do right now? I'm still just the dad, but providing opportunities for your children—that's what you want to do, and that's our purpose in life. To have them exceed what you've done, and now I spend my time trying to set the example for them. Say, you can do great things. You can achieve anything, and I think that's the thing that I enjoy the most, just being able to be part of their lives.
Last question here, because I know we're running out of time. This is a simple one. What would be like your favorite Bible verse? Do you have like a verse or scripture or something that you like to?
This is a weird one. You'd never guess it, but it's Genesis 1:2.
I was ready to guess. Was it like something like Genesis 1:1 or something?
Yeah. Well, Genesis 1:1 is in the beginning God created, but what in verse 2 it's but the earth was void and without form, and people that's strange. Why would that be your favorite verse? Because what God did was create a canvas. He created a blank slate, a white wall, if you will, that anything could be painted on. And that's really what our lives are. We're just this canvas that anything could be created on. And to see what he did in the later verses, and ultimately said, and this was good, and it was very good. That's our objective in life, is to God created us, gave us a life, which is a blank canvas. It's void and without form when we start, and are we going to end up in the end with Him saying this was good? That's really why I pick out that thing. I love art. I love paintings. I love all these things. I even love music. But when you start at the beginning, what is it? It's a blank slate. You always have to start there before you end up with something that's great.
I really like that. I've never heard someone compare it to something like that. It's actually, I like that a lot. It's super unique. No, awesome. Thank you again, Stuart, for coming and talking with us. Is there anything else you'd like to share or anything?
No,
His next business he's starting, there's a neon glow up light out back at the gym, says massages, and that's where. I'm just teasing.
I rarely even rub my wife's shoulders, so I don't think that would fly very well.
No, thank you, Stuart. That was really awesome. I think there was a lot of good stuff there. Hope someone else can take something from it. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to follow us or subscribe on the Apple Podcast or Google Podcast to get notifications when we post an episode every week. If you believe it, you can achieve it. We'll see you in the gym soon.